There is a woman in eastern Kentucky right now, 87 years old, making stew from a government commodity box. She has been making stew from whatever she had since 1953. That is not a historical fact. That is a Tuesday. Number 18 was hunted with a rifle and a prayer. Number 4 may have saved the American Revolution. Number 1 is still being made in kitchens you will never see. These are 22 forgotten stews that got poor seniors through the coldest winters. Hit subscribe because some of these are still keeping people alive. Let us count them down. 22. Slumgullion scraps of meat. Nobody else wanted potatoes, onions, and water. Simmered for 2 hours in a mining camp pot until everything broke down into something gray and edible. Mark Twain described eating it in a Nevada mining camp in 1872 and could not identify most of the contents. That was the point. Slumgullion was made from tails, hooves, gristle, and organ meats. Combined with potatoes and simmered long enough, it became a meal. 5 to 10 cents fed 6. The name itself meant mud pit. 21. Lobscouse salt beef, crumbled hardtack biscuits, potatoes and onions simmered in a heavy pot. Sailors brought it to American port cities from Northern Europe. Liverpool's people became known as Scousers because of this stew. In Baltimore, Boston, and New York, it fed dock workers and retired sailors living on pensions in waterfront tenements. The hardtack dissolved into the broth and thickened it. By the 1950s, canned stews replaced it. An entire Atlantic food culture disappeared with it. 20. Pine bark stew catfish or bream caught from the Pee River. Fried bacon, potatoes, and onions simmered in a cast iron pot over a pine bark fire. The fish dissolved into the broth and created a natural cream without any cream. Captain John Kelly of Kingstree, South Carolina, made it famous at hunting clubs in the early 1900s. Today, it is virtually unknown, even in South Carolina. 19. Leather britches, stew green beans dried on strings all summer, soaked overnight, then simmered for 3 hours with a ham hock and potatoes. The Cherokee people taught settlers this preservation method. Before canning existed, drying was the only way to save summer vegetables for winter. The beans shriveled until they looked like old leather. By December, families pulled the strings down from porch rafters and dropped handfuls into the pot. The stew tasted like summer, concentrated into the coldest months. 18. Squirrel stew with dumplings. 1 or 2 squirrels browned in a Dutch oven, simmered for an hour with potatoes and onions, then topped with flour dumplings that floated in the rich broth. During the Depression, families who could hunt squirrel considered themselves lucky. A man with a rifle was rich in the only way that mattered. He could feed his family for free. The forests were full of squirrels. By the 1950s, nobody ate them anymore. 17. Poke salad, stew wild pokeweed. Shoots boiled 3 times to remove the toxins, then simmered with bacon, potatoes, and onions. If you got the preparation wrong, you got very sick. Appalachian women learned the technique from their mothers, who learned from theirs, who learned from the Cherokee. Elvis Presley grew up eating it in rural Tennessee. The knowledge of how to safely prepare it was never written down. It was passed by hand. When the generation that knew it stopped teaching, the knowledge began to die. 16. Tripe and onion. Stew strips of beef stomach, slow-cooked in caramelized onions and broth for 3 hours. The long cooking transformed tough tripe into something silky. In Italian-American neighborhoods in the 1920s, Saturday night was tripe night. Families gathered for the meal their grandmothers had made in Naples. 5 to 10 cents a pound for the cheapest meat available. By the 1950s, the children of immigrants moved to suburbs and left tripe behind. It reminded them of poverty and the old country they wanted to forget. Here is something worth knowing about these stews. Every one of them starts with the cheapest ingredient the cook could find: organ meats, wild greens, dried beans, government surplus. The women who made them were not following recipes. They were solving a math problem. How do I feed 6 people with what I have in this kitchen right now? A stew pot was the answer every time. You put in whatever you had, added water, applied heat, and waited. The pot did the work. The woman did the thinking. 15. Beef heart stew. Beef heart trimmed and cubed, browned until a crust formed, then simmered with potatoes, carrots, and onions for 2 hours. Beef heart was 10 to 15 cents a pound. Nobody wanted it. Nobody celebrated it. But Southern cooks learned to make it tender through slow braising. The oldest people alive today remember their mothers making it. Their children do not. A generation of knowledge about cooking organ meat vanished when grocery stores started selling only the pretty cuts. 14. Kidney stew. Beef kidneys cleaned, cubed, dredged in flour, and simmered slowly with potatoes, carrots, and aromatics. British steak and kidney pie was the luxury version. This was the version without the steak. It appeared in working-class kitchens in Boston, Philadelphia, and New York. The flour created a light thickening. The slow simmering tamed the strong organ flavor. By the 1950s, when fresh beef was cheap, kidney stew vanished. The British grandmother's technique of making kidneys edible was lost to American culture. 13. Salt pork and potato stew. Salt pork from the smokehouse barrel, boiled to leach out the excess salt, then simmered with potatoes and onions. This was the spring stew, made when the smokehouse supply was running low and fresh vegetables were not yet growing. For 200 years, every farm family in America put down salt pork in the fall and lived on it until spring. When rural electrification brought refrigerators, home smokehouses became unnecessary. Salt pork and potato stew, made continuously for 2 centuries, vanished in a single generation. 12. Liver dumpling stew. Ground liver mixed with stale bread soaked in milk, formed into dumplings, and simmered in beef broth with potatoes and carrots. German and Austrian immigrants brought Leberknödel to America in the 1850s. During the Depression, liver was 3 to 5 cents a pound, the cheapest meat in America. German grandmothers knew exactly what to do with it. Church basements in Cincinnati and Milwaukee served it at community suppers. The smell of liver and marjoram was the smell of the old country. By the 1960s, the grandmothers died, and nobody learned to form the dumplings. 11. Pot liquor stew. The dark broth left from cooking collard greens, thickened with cornmeal, with potatoes and scraps of ham hock added back in. During slavery, plantation owners ate the greens while enslaved people received the cooking liquid. Those women discovered that the pot liquor contained more nutrition than the greens themselves. They thickened it with cornmeal and fed their families from what was meant to be discarded. In 1931, Georgia Governor Eugene Talmadge and a newspaper editor argued publicly about whether cornbread should be crumbled or dunked into pot liquor. 2 wealthy white men debating a food that poor black women had depended on for 200 years. Today, most people pour the pot liquor down the drain. Here is what the history books leave out about winter in America before 1950. There was no grocery store open at 9 p.m. There was no drive-through. There was no calling for delivery. There was a root cellar, a smokehouse, and whatever you had preserved or dried or salted in the fall. By February, the cellar was half empty and the smokehouse was running low. That is when stew mattered most. You took whatever was left and you made it stretch. A bone with scraps of meat, a handful of dried beans, a few potatoes going soft, water and heat and time. That combination kept more Americans alive through more winters than any government program ever did. 10 neck bone stew. Pork neck bones simmered for an hour and a half until the meat fell from the bone. Then collard greens, potatoes, and onions added back in for another 45 minutes. Neck bones were less than 10 cents a pound. They were mostly bone and connective tissue. But the collagen they released into the broth was extraordinary. In Black Southern communities, every grandmother knew how to make neck bone stew. After the Great Migration, when families moved north to industrial cities, the tradition began to fade. Northern grocery stores carried different cuts. The old ways did not survive the move. 9. Marrow bone. Stew split. Marrow bones simmered for an hour until the marrow rendered into the broth. Then barley, potatoes, and onions added in. Pioneer women called bone marrow prairie butter because it was the richest fat available. The marrow coated the tongue and made the thinnest broth taste substantial. Today, the bone broth trend sells for $8 to $15, a serving what pioneer women made for pennies from kitchen scraps. They did not call it a wellness trend. They called it February. 8. Rabbit stew with dumplings. Rabbit browned and simmered for an hour. Then flour dumplings dropped into the pot. During the Depression, people called rabbit hoover steaks. A skilled trapper could keep a family fed on zero cash. The rabbit meat was lean, delicate, and tasted like the forest. By the 1950s, when meat was abundant and cheap, nobody hunted rabbit anymore. Commercial rabbit now costs $18 to $25 a pound in restaurants. The poor man's meal became a luxury item. 7. Hog head stew. A whole hog head split, cleaned, and simmered for 4 hours until the meat fell from the skull. Cheeks, jowls, tongue, snout, ears. Then potatoes, turnips, and onions added with sage and vinegar. Hog killing day was the most important food event of the year in rural America. When the first hard frost hit, neighbors gathered. The head went into the pot first because it could not be preserved. Hog head stew fed the butchering crew. One head fed 10 to 15 people. The last generation that made it is now in their 80s and 90s. When they are gone, the knowledge disappears entirely. 6. Ham bone and lima bean stew. The bone from Sunday's ham dinner simmered for 2 hours to make broth. Then lima beans and potatoes added in. Sunday ham was the meal of celebration. Monday ham bone stew was the echo. It was an elegant system. The celebration became the week's nourishment. One ham dinner stretched into 3 or 4 more meals. By the 1960s, when meat was cheap and abundant, families threw away the ham bone. The connection between Sunday and Monday was severed. Only elderly people remember that bones are valuable. 5. Sow belly and bean. Stew salt cured pork, belly boiled to leach out the salt, then simmered for 3 hours with dried beans and potatoes. The frontier was built on sow belly. Settlers heading west carried barrels of it. Cowboys ate it on cattle drives. Homesteaders depended on it through winters. Sow belly and beans together create complete protein. 1 pound flavored enough stew to feed 8 to 10 people. The word sow belly has vanished from American vocabulary. Children born after 1950 have never heard it. But for 200 years, it was the taste of survival. Here is the thing that connects every stew on this list. None of them were invented. Then they were discovered. A woman with a pot, a handful of whatever she had, water and fire. She was not creating cuisine. She was keeping people alive. The stew pot is the oldest technology in the American kitchen. It turns bones into broth, tough meat into tender, scraps into sustenance. Every woman who ever stood over a pot in a cold kitchen, stirring something together from nothing, was practicing the same art. They did not write cookbooks. They wrote survival into every bowl. 4. Philadelphia pepper pot. Beef tripe simmered with crushed black peppercorns, potatoes, celery, and onions in a bone broth for 3 hours. Legend says George Washington's cook created it at Valley Forge in the winter of 1777 to feed starving soldiers with scraps. Historians debate the origin story, but the stew was a Philadelphia institution for 150 years. Tripe was the cheapest meat available. The heavy pepper made it warming and complex. By the 1990s, only a handful of Philadelphia restaurants still served it. The revolutionary stew that may have helped win American independence became a museum piece. 3. Barley and root vegetable. Stew barley, potatoes, carrots, turnips, and onions simmered for an hour and a half until the barley released its starch and thickened everything. No meat required. Barley absorbs 3 to 4 times its volume in liquid. 1.5 cups of dry barley creates a massive pot of stew. During the Depression, mothers calculated, if I add a turnip, an onion, and some carrots to the barley, how many people can I feed? The answer was always enough. It was the mathematics of survival, and the knowledge that some foods stretch further than others, and that intelligent cooking could turn scarcity into sufficiency. 2. Mulligan stew. Whatever could be scrounged that day. Potato peels, vegetable scraps from restaurant dumpsters, bones begged from a butcher, day-old bread. Everything went into a communal pot in a hobo camp, large enough to feed dozens. Nobody owned the stew. Everyone ate from it. During the Depression, millions of Americans lived in camps under bridges and in railroad yards. Mulligan stew was collective survival. A hobo traded labor for vegetable scraps and brought them back to the pot. Everyone contributed what they had. The stew was not about flavor. It was about getting hot food into exhausted, hungry bodies in the coldest months. When World War II created jobs, the camps disappeared. So did the stew, the most desperate meal in American history, made by people who had absolutely nothing. 1. Commodity box stew. Canned vegetables, canned meat, dried beans, powdered milk, and whatever else the government commodity box contained that month. Combined in a pot with water and simmered until it became a meal. This stew is not historical. It is being made right now. 3 million Americans receive commodity food boxes monthly through the Federal Commodity Supplemental Food Program. Most of them are elderly. Most of them are alone. An 80-year-old woman opens her commodity box, looks at what she has been given this month, and figures out how to make it stretch. She has been solving this equation her entire life. Canned green beans, a tin of beef, some dried pinto beans, a bag of cornmeal. She puts it in a pot because that is what she has always done. She does not call it commodity box stew. She calls it supper. And she eats it alone at a table set for one, in a kitchen nobody visits, solving the same problem her mother solved and her grandmother solved before that. How do I eat tonight? The answer is always the same. You find what you have. You put it in a pot. You add water. You wait. And you eat. Commodity box stew is not a recipe from the past. It is happening right now, in kitchens you will never see, made by people you will never meet. The most forgotten stew in America is the one that never stopped being made. Make one of these this week. Just one. The salt pork and potato stew, the barley and root vegetable stew, the ham bone and lima bean. Buy the ingredients for a couple of dollars and cook something that kept seniors alive through the worst winters this country has ever seen. Set a place, sit down, eat it slow. Tell me in the comments which one you are going to try. I want to know if anyone's grandmother made pot liquor stew and never threw away the broth. I want to know if the ham bone tradition still lives in someone's Monday kitchen. I want to know if these stews are still keeping people warm. Because these were not just stews. They were 22 ways that American women looked at an empty kitchen in the coldest month of the year and said, "I will feed this family tonight." That is not poverty. That is the single strongest thing a human being can do.